Parasha. How you guys doing tonight? Sorry, we couldn't remember when this was scheduled for. How you guys doing? Sorry, we're late. When I first started digging into this, I wasn't sure where it was going to go. I thought the reading. Good evening. Hope you're doing well, BB. I wasn't. The Torah portion reading for September 11th, Tuesday, 2001, was the one in the comments, but the actual day that it occurred is 23rd Elul, which I think is close to my actual birthday, like in creation, not in the Goyim calendar. I can't remember what it was when I looked up a year or two ago. But there is so much, way more to this stream than I have any clue of. Because the sages from thousands of years ago, they say that every single thing is in the Torah, in the 5 books of Moses, in the words, and in the what's called the gematria, the numerical value of every Hebrew letter, give clues and hints. And so it's not just the dates and the things that happen, but like jet fuel melting steel beams is in there, and all the names of the hijackers and what passports they had and when they took off from which airport, and who is the architect that designed the World Trade Centers, and the Silverstein Properties bought it or took over the lease in 2001, just a few months before the attacks. All that stuff is in there. I just have no clue how to find all of it. With God's help, we found this. Deuteronomy chapter 29, verse 15 through 28. This week is Parasha Nitzavim. And this week, since this is a regular year, it's also Baalic. But in 2001, it was what's called a lunar leap year, or leap year on the Jewish calendar, where they add an extra month. So there was only a single Torah portion, but we'll get into God's first of all, God gave everyone a last minute warning last week with all the horrendous curses in Parasha Ki Tavo, Deuteronomy 26 through 28. Or it's actually, the 28 and the 28 of what happens when people just take the tiniest piece out of what he says, or don't pay attention to all the fine details. For you know how we have dwelt in the land of Egypt, and how we came through the nations which you passed by, and you have seen their abominations and their idols, wood and stone, silver and gold, which were among them. We all committed horrendous sins of idolatry. We worship wood and stone. We worship the cross of the church in Christianity. We worshiped every kind of little tiny statue. We worshiped the more subtle meaning, as what some of the prophets call the work of men's hands. Not just carved idols that they worship as little statues, but literally every putting our faith and trust in our own ability, our own physical ability, rather than faith and trust in God, where everything comes from. And silver and gold, we put our trust, and we worshipped money, which is silver. Kesef is money. And let's say that gold is not just money as well, but honor. We sought kavod, we sought honor and fame. And there's little else in America that represents all that stuff aside from the church. Although that's not necessarily true. I forgot. There is a cathedral on Church Street. I can't remember if it got destroyed or not in the attacks, but it's right there. Right there. So literally everything that God's talking about right here in verse 16, Deuteronomy chapter 29, Christianity, stone of, and the stone is not just little stone idols. It's anything that deviates from the precise and exact truth of who God is and his Torah. Meaning anything that is not in the Masorah of the Jews that keep the Torah, meaning Islam, philosophy, anything at all. And so there's no greater monument than the tallest building in the financial district in New York City, with a church right down at the bottom. Wood and stone, silver and gold, which were among them. Rashi says, "You have seen their abominable things." Idols are termed so because they are loathsome, like unclean things that are held in abomination. Gilgulim, Gilguleim, they're idols. Thus termed because they are detestable, literally malodorous, like they stink. They are just filth. And loathsome like dung. Rashi says of wood and stone, because they're cheap, they're openly exposed, lest the heathen is not afraid that they'll be stolen because they have little value. But on silver and gold, he says they keep hidden away in their marbled halls, like it says in Ezekiel chapter 8, verse 12. Or like the gold and silver crosses that people wear around their neck that tuck under their shirt, wear it close to their heart. Lest there should be among you a man or woman or family or tribe whose heart turns away this day from the Lord our God to go and serve the gods of these nations, lest there should be among you a root that bears gall and wormwood. And the opening of Parasha Nitzavim is you're all standing here today. Moses, prophet Moses, Moshe Rabbeinu assembled the entire nation to stand and reaffirm the covenant. And he's telling them that this translation says, "Lest there be among you," but when you go to the Rashi, that's the awesome thing when you use the commentary. Doesn't matter what translation you're using. It's at least now currently, even Sefaria, which is a horrible site to read from, but the Rashi will guide you in the right direction. The Penyesh, Penyesh Bechem means perhaps, not lest there be like just in case. It means, you know, like God is saying through Moshe, through Moses, I see what is going on in your heart right now. And there's someone, some man, woman, family, or tribe who holds in their heart that they're going to worship some idol that they saw on the way, or in wherever they go in the exile, like America. And it come to pass when he hears the words of this curse that he blessed himself in his heart, saying, I shall have peace though I walk in the stubbornness of my heart, to have drunkenness to thirst. Meaning, even though he read a little bit of the 5 books of Moses, he thinks that God changed his mind. He thinks that, God, he's bros with God. God's gonna forgive him for all the sins that he committed, and even besides that, just for not learning, not taking the time to delve deeply into. I mean, this is from God. You better find out and read it, figure out what he's saying, and make sure you get it right. But no, this man, woman, family, or tribe says, God, peace will be with me. Shalom. God says, nope, the Lord will not spare him. But then the anger of the Lord and his jealousy shall smoke against that man, and all the curses that are written in this book shall lie upon him, and the Lord will blot out his name from under heaven. That is horrendous. For all eternity. And the Lord shall mark him off for evil out of all the tribes of Israel, according to all the curses of the covenant and that are written in the book of this Torah. This is where the like all that stuff not only applies to all the people that ran the financial district that were affected, and a lot of the people that died, but every single one of us was a warning from God to us that we all completely missed. I barely had a glimpse at the last second, but I was in not exactly the right place to understand what was going on. And verse 21 in chapter 29, so that the generation to come of your children shall rise up after you, and the alien that shall come from a far land shall say, when they see the plagues of that land and the sickness with the Lord, which the Lord has brought upon it, and that the whole land is brimstone and salt and burning, but it is not sown nor bears, nor does any grass grow on it, like the overthrow of Sodom and Gomorrah, Adam and Zeboim, which the Lord overthrew in his anger and his wrath. I mean, that's when I read that months ago. I skipped ahead once I started digging a little bit. I had to figure out which reading was on the day the Twin Towers got struck, and I got to that line. I was like, wow. And then all the nations shall say, why has the Lord done this to this land? What means the heat of this great anger? Then men shall say, because they have forsaken the covenant of the Lord God of their forefathers, which he made with them, which he brought when he brought them out of the land of Mitzrayim. And God brought his nation, the nation of Israel, the Jews, out of Egypt into the land of Israel so that they could serve him. And now that they're in exile, we are in Egypt. Like we learned a couple weeks ago, I forget which Parasha it's in, somewhere around chapter 20 or 21 of Deuteronomy, I believe. God hates trees and he hates stone pillars. Not all trees, but any tree set up to worship or has anything to do with thoughts or service of God in any way, shape, or form. God finds it abominable. And there are those, like, not just stone pillars but obelisks, like the exact thing from Egypt. They're all over this country. I mean, a bunch of them are even on church property with crosses on top. I mean, people are so stupid. They're so completely blind. They don't even read their own book. Just, baffling. Completely. I mean, not really. Once you really start to learn, it's just totally obvious why people don't learn Musar. Like King Solomon says, it is your life. Then the men shall say, because they have forsaken the covenant of the Lord God, their forefathers, which he made with them when he brought them out of the land of Mitzrayim, land of Egypt, for they went and served other gods and worshipped them, gods whom they knew not. When you read this verse, Deuteronomy chapter 29, verse 25, whom they knew not, you got to think, who is Moses talking to? This isn't right now. This isn't 2,000 years ago or 1,900 years ago. This is 3,300 some years ago, give or take a couple years. Way before Jesus. 1,300 plus years before Jesus. Gods whom they knew not. Nobody that came up out of Egypt. Nobody that Moses is talking to. They knew about a lot of idolatry. They came from the place. Egypt was the Mecca. No, pun kind of intended. The Mecca of idolatry. But nobody that came up out of there knew Jesus. And the Rashi is just beautiful in this. It is so, at least I think this is the one. Served other gods whom they knew not, i.e. in who they had never experienced any divine power. Oh, this isn't the one. There's one where it talks about it's gods which your forefathers did not know. I think it's a ways back in the 5 books of Moses. Rashi says new idols, like even the goyim, even the Gentiles will look at these like weird idols that the Jews have when they stop following the Torah, and all the goyim will say that's a Jewish idol, just like Jesus. And the anger of the Lord burned against this land to bring upon it all the curses that are written in this book. And the Lord rooted them out of the land in anger and in wrath and in great indignation, and cast them into another land as it is this day. This translation says the secret things belong to the Lord our God, but the Chumash, which is more accurate, is referring to sins. Secret sins belong to the Lord our God, but those sins which are revealed to us belong to us and our children forever. Meaning that if we know someone that is committing any of these sins, it is our obligation to rebuke them in some way, shape, or form. If early on, we really don't know how to do that without committing a sin. So God had mercy on us all, and He gave us the internet and links and YouTube videos of Rabbi Reuben. All we have to do is say, "Hey, watch this, watch this, because you are bringing destruction not only upon yourself but on everyone." And if we don't, God's not going to have any mercy on them at all whatsoever. He's going to blot out their name from under the heaven. And He's not going to have any mercy on us if we don't at least make some kind of attempt. Rashi says, and if you say, but what can we do? You threaten the many with the punishment because of the sinful thoughts of one individual. As it said in verse 15, lest there be among you a man, a woman, a family whose heart turned away this day from the Lord. And afterwards it states, and they will see plagues of that land, but surely no man can know the secret thoughts of his fellow. Now I reply, I do not threaten to punish you because of the secret thoughts, for these belong to the Lord our God. He will exact punishment from that individual. But those things which are revealed to us, like when someone worships a man or believes and preaches heresy, or worships money, or covets honor, or causes other people to sin in any number of ways, it's our obligation. But that is the other reason why we absolutely must learn. There's a lot of details. And this is just this one part. The thing that I was getting at earlier is this goes way, way back. At first I thought it was just, it's a year. I was wondering, so I checked, maybe it was, so I dug back through the entire, I checked chapter 9, verse 11, throughout every single book in the 5 books of Moses. And most of them made just brutal sense. Some of them I had to widen the verse for some context to see what was going on. But there was one at first that I couldn't really understand until, well, we're getting ahead of ourselves. Let's start with the beginning. God's covenant with Noah. In Genesis chapter 9, verse 11, and I will confirm my covenant with you. Never again shall all flesh be cut off by the waters of the flood, and never again shall there be a flood to destroy the earth. And the commentary from Sforno, Orchaim, and Hiskuni clarify what God's talking about here, just so no one gets confused and thinking God turned into a cream puff because He felt sorry that He wiped out the entire human race and all the animals except for everyone on a boat. Never again shall all flesh be cut off. Part of the world's population may be destroyed, but never again will the entire world be destroyed by a flood or any other catastrophe. Even if the people are sinful, the Egyptians made this mistake. They thought they could drown Jewish babies and avoid God's measure for measure retribution because He had sworn never to bring another flood. They didn't realize that only the entire world wouldn't be flooded. Therefore, the Egyptian army could be drowned by the splitting of the sea. And as a side note, nowhere does God say that He's not going to burn everything, or at least a large part of the earth. Book of Exodus, the 6th plague, and I think this is Parasha Bo, is the Bakukutai and Ki Tavo are two of the scariest Torah portions in the 5 books of Moses. But when you read the commentary and know like all the details of what is going on, Parasha book was pretty terrifying as well. Exodus chapter 9 verses 8 through 11. The Lord said to Moshe and Aaron, see this is what threw me off, because I got to this and I thought, okay, something's not right here. Because I'm going to go to verse 11 first, so you can see why I thought what I thought. Okay. The necromancers could not stand before Moses because of the boils, because the boils were on the necromancers and on all of Egypt. And I thought, okay, this is just me trying to make something out of nothing. I tried to ignore it, but there was too much everywhere else. Like every other chapter, 9, 11, and the entire 5 books of Moses. So I left this until like a month or two ago, and then I figured I gotta go look at this. I gotta delve into it, because, as the sages say, everything is in the Torah. The Lord said to Moses and Aaron, take for yourselves handfuls of furnace soot, and let Moshe hurl it heavenward before Pharaoh's eyes. It will become dust over the entire land of Egypt, and it will become boils erupting into blisters on man and beast. The necromancers could not stand before Moshe because of the boils, because the boils were on the necromancers in all of Egypt. Rashi says to verse 8, and let Moses through it, since anything which is thrown with force must be thrown with one hand only. There are several miracles here. One, that Moses' fingers held as much as two fists plus those of Aaron's, because only Moses threw. When the verse says Moses and Aaron, so it's literally 4 fistfuls fit in Moses' one hand. That this dust spread over the entire land of Egypt is itself another miracle. And it kind of alludes to the miracles of jet fuel melting steel beams, or whatever happened, that we're never going to know exactly what it was, how much of it was fake or real, or the only thing that matters is that it happened. And the people in the little airplanes, or run around on the ground like ants, whatever their machinations were, whatever their plans, God directs people for their desire to commit good or evil exactly where he wants them, so that the righteous are rewarded and the wicked are punished. And the Rashi to verse 9 just adds fuel to the fire. The Hebrew lishkin, boils. Rashi says the word implies heat. And Ramban on verse 11, stripped of their arrogance by the painful boils, they could not cure. The sorcerers were ashamed to appear before Moses. Basically, all that were haughty and proud and arrogant were completely humbled. America and our great pride thought we were completely indestructible and untouchable. Got a smack in the face. And what do we do? The completely wrong thing. The stupid. The reaction of the arrogant. How dare How dare they do that to us? Do you know who we are? And on rewarding the righteous and punishing the wicked, only God knows which was which of the people that died during the attacks and whatever the aftermath was. Sometimes something that looks like punishment is really mercy, and sometimes something that looks like a blessing is really a punishment, like we learned at the end of Parasha Canaan, Deuteronomy chapter 7, verse 10. God pays his haters their reward in this world to make them perish. He will not delay in giving them their reward. But obviously, for everyone involved, at least everyone that survived, it was a serious rebuke for everyone. There was anyone affected in any way, shape, or form. Anytime something that we don't like occurs, God is either tapping us on the head or literally beating us to a pulp, trying to get our attention. But most of us are so blinded by our desires and so lost in our this ocean of sins that we committed. All we do is we come out swinging, flying over across the ocean to bomb a bunch of nonsense, people that had really nothing to do with it. I can't remember. Okay, I think this stream is at least going to be through Leviticus. I couldn't fit all the details in. There's only 5,000 characters able to fit in a description. So for that reason, I figured I'd have to do 2 streams. But it's not just a year of warnings. It was literally since before this was a country. Like, there was a post a while back where Robert Victor Miller says the same year that the Jews got expelled from Spain, the king or queen funded the Columbus voyage to discover the Americas, or rediscover, or whatever you want to call it. God said, like, and God does this every time the Jews get kicked out of somewhere. There's already a place waiting, or at least God has it waiting. Sometimes it's not right away according to this present moment, but the last week in the warning in Parasha Ki Tavo, it talks about the siege and the destruction and cannibalism that happened to the settlers in Jamestown in like the early 1600s, like 1610 or 12 or something like that. They call it the starving time. They ate each other, and then they got attacked by Indians, and a bunch of them got murdered. Everything there was obviously no grass, because God says in the verse, everything is fire and brimstone and salt, and nothing grows. And what do the fools do? They not only do they react and lash out against the rebuke of God by going to war. A bunch of people will say they got fooled, and maybe to a minuscule degree, but the reality is everyone that had any involvement or anything, we don't get led anywhere by the nose. God only leads us by our own desires. So if we want to go murder some people, God will pave the way. And if we dig deep, we'll figure out, as much as we don't want to think that, for whatever it is, whether it's physical murder, spiritual murder, spiritually murdering our own souls, we dig deep, there's nowhere to hide. God gives us no quarter if we're honest with ourselves and we learn. We read the 5 books of Moses. And this is the book of Leviticus. God just keeps piling it on. I'm sure most people know about the Wall Street charging bull. It's the symbol of Wall Street. And it is idolatry. And in numerous forms. It is a physical, what's called a graven image in most translations. Any kind of 3-dimensional sculpture is completely forbidden if it's a complete animal. At least bears, bulls, eagles, lions, and people. People are another category, but bulls, bears, bulls, bears, lions, and eagles, they are completely forbidden as a whole complete statue. Rabbi Reuben says that when he heard that, he learned the halakha, like the details of the law, is you can just break a piece of it and that makes it kosher, so to say. But if there's anything a person wants to be stringent on, it's so all the things that God finds an abomination, like idolatry and immodesty and dishonesty in business, we want to be as strict as we possibly can. So he says when he heard that, he had a charging bull, or no, yeah, it was a bull. It was a bull statue. He said because he used to work on Wall Street. He was a multi-millionaire, ran a huge hedge fund. And then God took away all his money and his health, forced him to do teshuvah. Had no option whatsoever. Sometimes God is just really nice like that. I mean, while you're going through it, you really don't want to, really not rather have that happen. But once you see the truth and do teshuvah, you learn and repent from your wickedness and get close to God, at least a little bit. Whatever it was the best thing ever. Best, absolutely the best. But the book of Leviticus in chapter 9 deals with the aftermath and the atonement for the golden calf, which, amazingly enough, occurred during this period in the Hebrew calendar, 3,334 years ago. 34 or 5 years ago exactly. Right after God gave the Torah at Mount Sinai. Or I can't remember. Maybe it was before. My memory is not that great, but during that time, it occurred. Let's see. I think there was 3 40-day periods, and the final atonement was when Yom Kippur is, which is in 22 days. No coincidences whatsoever. Leviticus chapter 9, verse 11. And the flesh of the hide shall be burned in a fire outside the camp. Everything just keeps just building and building and building. I mean, the insane thing is the Wall Street lunatics pick the epitome of the worst idolatry to use for their icon, for their idolatry of worshiping money. And if you didn't know, the main function of the World Trade Center was a mostly financial operations. And they had all kinds of clues along the way that God was giving them, that like the WTC World Trade Center bombing in '93. Somehow didn't work how whoever it was intended. And there was a bank robbery, I think, in '98. Rashi says, ordinarily the only offerings that were burned outside the camp were the chatot and the chatot pinmiot and sin offerings whose blood was sprinkled inside the sanctuary. The only exceptions to this rule were this sin offering, and those of the 7 inauguration days, which were burned outside the camp, even though the entire blood service was on the outer altar. And the thing about to know about the camp is that's what they call the camp of the Shekhinah. God's presence was there. And so the World Trade Center got burned outside of God's presence. Probably because all the abominations that were committed there, the dishonest business and various other things, including the fact that there was a church at the base of the building, or somewhere around there. I can't remember exactly where. Why were these offerings completely burned? These offerings came at least in part to atone for Aaron's sin of the golden calf, by commanding that everything, even the hide, be burned, so that not a trace of them would remain. God intimated to the Jewish people that Aaron's sin was totally forgiven. And if you look at the rubble, there was barely anything left of all that mass. So that's about as completely burned as concrete and steel and glass could possibly ever get. And since America's what was called cup of sins, our measure of sins is not completely full yet, it had to serve as some kind of atonement for us to buy us some kind of time. And generally, what I say to say is, anytime there is something like that occurs, there are righteous people who are taken along with the wicked who deserve their punishment. Because I say the deaths of the righteous atone for all the sins of the wicked people that are left living in the world. You guys want to keep going? Book of Numbers. I can't remember exactly what this one is. Oh, this is another one that wasn't exactly 100% clear at first. This is about the second Passover, Pesach Sheni, I think. I think you were in the stream, BV, during this week where I did a stream on the Torah portion, and I right after the stream was done, God hid this to me, blinded my eyes to it until after the stream was over, and I saw it. And it was just so awesome. So I did a stream, but I made it private. I don't think anyone saw it because I wasn't sure if I was being too brutal. I was trying to get somebody. I had someone I was trying to get across the line. I didn't want to be too brutal at the time. Which that's the amazing thing is there are so many people that say they believe in the New Testament or Jesus or whatever. But they can hear the brutal truth. You can hear them, they can hear someone like Rabbi Reuben say, literally just mocking Jesus and saying that everything that they believe in or claim to believe at least is a complete lie. And there's only one truth, that is the Torah. Anyone that deviates from that is either an idol worshiper or a heretic, and they're going to eternal hell. And most of the people, all they do is say you shouldn't say that, or if they say anything at all, it's like you shouldn't be so harsh, and then they come back for more. It's so amazing, and it's one of those baffling things. Like someone is mocking your false god, and you got like when I burnt the Bible last year, there were people that called themselves believers in the New Testament and Jesus that were live on the stream when it happened, and all they could say was, I don't agree with what you're saying. And the most outrage I got was from some lady that I left a comment on some on one of Robert Rubin's videos. I said that she should consider editing or deleting her comment because it was not exactly the most modest thing to say. And she she really didn't like what I had to say at all. And she came on the channel and looked at that video, and she flipped out. It was like, how could you say that? What gives you the right? And, like what most people think in their head, like everyone has the freedom of religion or whatever. And she didn't even believe in the New Testament. But she was the only person that got outraged. That's how ridiculous it is. But then there are some people that you see, they embody what the Torah calls like why God commanded Moses and the Levites to execute 3,000 men, because when the Midianites came to entice them to worship their idolatry and get them to commit sins, they had become attached to Baal Peor, literally attached. And when a person becomes attached, like God is talking about there, it becomes virtually impossible to disconnect. It's the tum'ah, the impurity is so strong and bound. There's really no hope, and they just have to be wiped out whenever God decides that is. There are clues that you can see in people, though, that they're not attached. They're what's called traits of Avraham Avinu. Traits. I think it's the 7 traits of Abraham. It's in one of the Pirkei Avot later on. I think it's chapter 5. I forget which Mishnah it is, but there's one of the sages lists the character traits of Abraham and the character traits of the wicked Balaam, the prophet of the nations. I can't remember what they are, but it's basically all the good character traits are traits of Abraham, and all the horrible character traits are the traits of Balaam. Anyway, this verse, when I got done with the stream, it starts in Book of Numbers, chapter 9, verse 5 through 13. The 9/11 is obviously the one that is focused on, but like the sages say, the verse is important, but it's the context that really matters to give it life. And this is talking about all the coming out of after Mount Sinai, coming out of Egypt. And they kept the Passover on the 14th day of the first month at the evening in the wilderness of Sinai, according to all that the Lord commanded Moses, so to the children of Israel. And there were certain men who were defiled by the dead body of a man that could not keep the Passover on that day. And they came before Moses before Aaron on that day. And these men said to him, "We are defiled by the dead body of a man. Why are we kept back? Impurified because they worship Jesus." And now that they became unattached from Baal Peor, and they had cleansed themselves, which is a process when contaminated from a dead body, is immersed in a body of water called a mikveh, fed from a natural source. It must be at least a certain size, and then wait until night, and then you may re-enter the camp. That's a side note. Law is given in another passage, but and those men said to him, "We are defiled by the dead body of a man. Why are we kept back, that we may not offer an offering to the Lord in its appointed season among the children of Israel? And Moshe said to them, stand still, and I will hear what the Lord will command concerning you. And the Lord spoke to Moses, saying, speak to the children of Israel, saying, if any man of you or of your posterity shall be unclean by reason of a dead body, or be on a journey afar off, yet he shall keep the Passover to the Lord. This is verse 11. On the 14th day of the second month, at evening, they shall keep it, and eat with it unleavened bread and bitter herbs. Now, most people, that may not mean anything, especially not in any relation to 9/11 or the terrorist attacks. But when you learn with commentary from the sages, everything is made clear. The whole purpose for the unleavened bread and the bitter herbs was not just the hasty exit from Egypt. They call it bread of affliction, as a reminder and to humble themselves of where they came from. That's why it's unleavened. It's flat. It's the challah, the traditional loaves that are baked on the Sabbath, or for the Sabbath, not on the Sabbath. And the leavened loaves in the sanctuary, those are real fluffy and big, and like they call it showbread. It looks all nice. It's puffed up, showing, look at how big we are. We're shiny and new and tasty, like the Twin Towers. And afterwards, after their affliction, they're deflated and flat and eaten with bitter herbs. Bitter herbs. They shall leave none of it to the morning, nor break any bone of it. According to all the ordinances of the Passover shall they keep it. But the man that is clean and is not on a journey and fails to keep the Passover, then that person shall be cut off from among his people, because he brought not the offering of the Lord in its appointed season. That man shall bear his sin. The whole point of all of God's rebukes to us individually, as an individual person, and to any nation or country or whatever that we live in, or town or group of people, the whole point is so that we see that we did something wrong, so we can delve into it and figure out what it is, confess our sins for whatever they may be, and then fix the root of whatever it is that caused us to commit those sins, so they don't occur again. And then we're good. So we don't have to bear our sin. Since we got the energy and we're here, we'll try to finish at least the 5 books of Moses for the chapters here. Book of Deuteronomy. This is the final rebuke. God gave us one last chance the week before in Ki Tavo. Pretty much everybody totally missed it, because we're all stupid. At least we were. Baruch Hashem, not anymore. We're not so stubborn, and we're not so ignorant, and we're not so foolish. beginning to accept the Musar that God is giving us. Book of Deuteronomy, chapter 9, verse 6. And you should know, and this is what I'm talking about, where it started with the beginning, like not just the week before 9/11, not just the entire year, because the judgment was sealed. The judgment was sealed on Rosh Hashanah the year before. So already, because it happened on 23rd of Elul, 7 days before Judgment Day. So God had already decreed that unless we do tshuva and seriously repent for all the idolatry that we were committed, both wood and stone, silver and gold, in all their forms, anything that deviates from a single universal truth that of the Torah, that God is one and not anything else, not more than one and not less than one. It started at the beginning of this country, before even this was America. Just when people landed on the dirt here, when they ran away from Spain and England to make their new Egypt, that they didn't realize really what they were doing. But this is Moses' rebuke of the people before they entered the land of Israel. And you should know that not because of your righteousness does the Lord your God give you this good land to possess it, for you are a stiff-necked people. It was because the Native Americans that lived here, they were evil. At least most of them were. They worshiped their own idolatry and immorality. And I'm sorry if you're whoever might watch this, those are your people. But the thing we have to understand is that we don't want to be attached mentally, physically, ideologically, and certainly not spiritually to anything at all that is detached from God's truth. There are certain values that every people have, but if we take one piece out of what God says is true and right and good, it falls apart and it rots. Doesn't matter what the tradition of your family, or how many hundreds or thousands of years it goes back. And there's one single verse that clarifies how and why that is. God, in the I can't remember what verse it is, but it's given a couple times in different ways. It's so simple, and everyone completely misses the depth without the sages. We cannot go a verse, not a verse, totally lost without help. God says, honor your mother and father, keep the Sabbath, I am God. It's so simple. And everyone, when they read it, just the plain verse, everyone thinks they know exactly what's going on. You honor your parents, keep the Sabbath, and God is God, right? I mean, that's the extremely basic peshat, the basic meaning. But what God is really saying is, like everything, there is an order, and the the fact that God says, I am God, is unnecessary. So we know that there's something extra he's trying to tell us. Because like Rabbi Reuben says, we know God is God. We know you're God. You just got finished saying that, the verse before and the verse before that. I mean, who else is this thundering voice coming out of the sky that ripped open the fabric of reality and shook the mountain? Let's just say there's the order of who we owe our allegiance. We have to honor and respect and fear our parents. And we have to do what God says, which is symbolized and signified by keep the Sabbath, which for a non-Jew means not keeping the Sabbath. At least not like the Jews do. Because if we do, it's stealing. Unless we're practicing for in the process of converting and eventually fulfilling all of God's laws. But if your parents, that's why God says, I am God. So yes, you should follow your parents, you should honor your forefathers, but if they tell you to go against, if they tell you to go against what God says, then that's why he says, I am God. Remember who made you. Yes, your parents were partners, so to say, with God that brought you to the world. So you have to acknowledge that. We have to acknowledge that. We have to give them the respect that God demands that we give them. But if they say to violate God's laws, whether it's breaking the Sabbath for a Jew or keeping the Sabbath for a goy, for a non-Jew, or they tell us to go against any other law that God has, even the tiniest one, we aren't to listen to them. That doesn't mean we disrespect them, though. Let's just say, even if your mom is a prostitute, even if your mom is a prostitute, you're not allowed to disrespect her. All you're allowed to do is not listen to, if your parents ask you to enable them to commit sins, or enticing you to commit sins, is a different thing. That gets in territory I'm not familiar with on the details, but if that occurs, you best want to separate yourself, run away. And you should know that not because of your righteousness does the Lord your God give you this good land to possess it, for you are a stiff-necked people. Moses was about to begin the major portion of his parting words to the Jewish people, which consisted of the commandments and prophecies about the future. Before doing so, he listed some of the sins that they had committed after the 10 Commandments were given, says the Ramban. He did so in order to caution them not to take their responsibilities lightly. Sforno says that having just told them that their personal righteousness was not a factor in gaining the land, Moshe followed up by proving to them that they had been deficient and that indeed there had been a pattern of rebellion. We have rebelled constantly. And now we are at the end of the earth and there is nowhere left to go. There's nowhere to run. There's no new land to run off to, away from all the people that we deem wicked. The only thing left to do is to turn and admit everything that we did, not just everything we did, but everything that our forefathers did was wrong. and learn the truth and follow it. Deuteronomy chapter 9, verse 7. Oh man, this is just beating us in the face. Remember, do not forget. That sound familiar? Catch slogan of fools. Do not forget that you provoked the Lord your God in the wilderness from the day you left the land of Egypt until your arrival at this place. You have been rebels against the Lord. And in Horeb, do not forget that you provoked the Lord, and the Lord became angry with you to destroy you. When I ascended the mountain to receive the tablets of stone, the tablets of the covenant that the Lord sealed with you, and I remained on the mountain for 40 days and 40 nights. Bread I did not eat, and water I did not drink. And the Lord gave me the 2 stone tablets inscribed with the finger of the Lord, and on them were all the words that the Lord spoke with you on the mountain from the midst of the fire on the day of the congregation. When you didn't see anything, you saw no form, no manner, no form, and no image. God opened the heavens, and there was nothing there. No big guy with a gray beard. No young guy with long hair and sandals. Nothing that we could see. At least nothing that looked like anything that we could comprehend as anything that we knew. So that's one of the reasons why God commands us not to make anything, not even any image that has any association with God, the real God. Nothing at all. Because one, doing so attempts the impossible. It attempts to minimize who God is. Even if it's only in our own minds. We begin to think that, this is God. This little trinket, this little chunk of wood, this little piece of plaster or stone or molten image of gold or silver. Maybe this is what God really looks like up there in the clouds. Maybe he's just like me, but, older and more powerful. And slowly, as soon as a person starts to do that, even if their intent is just to glorify God's name, we learn early on, do not do anything, even for the most righteous of intentions, that God doesn't say clearly this is what you should do. Aaron's sons did that same thing. They brought foreign fire. They brought an improper incense mixture, and they were slightly intoxicated during the service, and God smoked them. And they were righteous. And most of us are certainly nowhere near their level. All this stuff, it's not just stories in the 5 books of Moses. It's everything is for us to know, not just the laws, but how we are to interact and things we are not to do. We're supposed to learn from all the mistakes of other people. Like Robert Rubin says, only a fool learns from their own mistakes, but only a completely doomed person doesn't even learn from their own mistakes. Chapter 9, verse 11. It was at the end of the 40 days and 40 nights that the Lord gave me the 2 stone tablets, the tablets of the covenant. when I first saw this, I wasn't sure other than the, 2 stone tablets. It was like a symbol for the Twin Towers, basically. I wasn't sure if that was enough, but using the advice of the sages to look for the context is brutally clear. Then the Lord said to me, "Arise, descend quickly from here, for your people that you took out of Egypt has become corrupt. They have strayed quickly from the way that I commanded them. They have made themselves a molten image. They made themselves a charging bull and placed it on Wall Street." And the Lord said to me, saying, "I have seen this people. Behold, it is a stiff-necked people. Release me, and I shall destroy them and erase their name from under the heavens. And I shall make you a mightier and more numerous nation than they." So I turned and descended from the mountain, as the mountain was burning in fire, and the 2 stone tablets of the covenant were in my 2 hands. Then I saw, and behold, you had sinned to the Lord your God. You made yourselves a molten calf, and you strayed from the way that the Lord commanded you. Set up a house of idolatry in the financial district of New York. And everyone, not only in all around America, but pretty much all around the world, instead of praying towards where the temple was in Jerusalem, they all faced Manhattan and bowed down. I grasped the 2 stone tablets and threw them from my 2 hands, and I smashed them before your eyes. And I threw myself before the Lord as the first time. 40 days and 40 nights bread I did not eat, and water I did not drink, because of your entire sin that you committed to do that which is evil in the eyes of the Lord, to anger him. For I was terrified of the wrath and blazing anger which the Lord had been provoked against you to destroy you. And the Lord hearkened to me at that time as well. The Lord became very angry with Aaron to destroy him. So I prayed also for Aaron at that time. Your sin you committed, the calf, I took it and burned it in the fire, and I pounded it, grinded it well, until it was fine as dust, and I threw the dust into the brook that descended from the mountain. I don't think the actually, I'm pretty positive the charging bull didn't get destroyed on 9/11. That just would have been too much. God always has to hold something back, even for something as glaringly obvious as this. Once it's all put in one place, there's always got to be something he leaves for the people that just don't want to see the truth. Like the sages say, what the reason why there's that stumbling block in the book of Genesis, right in the beginning, Bereshit, in the beginning, chapter 1, verses, I think it's 25 and 26. Let us make man in our image. And half the world trips and falls, not even one chapter into God's book, and they fall flat on their face, completely missing the context. Without the sages, we're so lost. Just look at verse 26. That's the amazing thing. One thing to know: any time anyone uses a verse that goes against the Masorah of the sages, against the tradition that they teach, anytime they say the weapon to defend their lies is always right close by, right there. Sometimes it's not the very next verse. Sometimes it's maybe a passage, but it will always be just before or just after. God puts it right there, always. And in verse 26, what does the verse say? It says, and God went down, or no, and God made man. I think the same thing happens in chapter 6 of Genesis, where it says, let us go and confound their speech. And it says God went down. The very next verse. But we're so completely blind. Oh Hashem, thank God for his mercy and to show us the truth. Give us a roadmap from the sages. I hope this. I hope and pray. I hope this helps some people get to the truth. That's the only. I mean, not the only point, but the main purpose of all this stuff. The secondary purpose is to reinforce our own learning and to, as the sages teach, the purpose of our learning is to fear God. Because that's the only way to begin to get close to Him, to learn and to know who He is, how He operates in the world. That's the whole reason for all the stories in the 5 books of Moses, and so we can learn all those details. There are so many secrets how to live now and forever. Everything from how to go to war and survive physically in a physical war and a spiritual war, to how to pray, how to conduct yourself with people you know, with your family, with strangers that are trying to kill you. Everything. Most people's reaction is when they face some kind of physical danger is to attack, and that is not the right way to go. The sages teach that we learn from Yaakov and Esau, their interaction when they meet Jacob and Esau. The whole time Esau is a bloodthirsty murderer. Can't wait to kill his brother. Why can't he? Why does he want to kill him? Because he was stupid and he sold the birthright for a bowl of beans. But then when they meet, Yaakov wasn't sure if is he still mad? I mean, he's come with an army. There's like a bunch of soldiers, and they're all murderers. And what does he do? Rather than forming an assault plan, he sends them just a massive tribute, flocks and herds and gold and silver and slaves. I know last time we left you wanted to murder me, but here's just a pile of money. But I'll always be prepared for if that doesn't work. That's why he split up his family in different groups. When a person that that passage is so amazing. Because at first you think, you know, why would he send any of them out in front? Like he obviously hates the one wife and kids, and or at least he cares more about the others because he put them in the back. But that's the thoughts of the wicked. He loved both of his wives as and his kids as equally as a human being possibly can. But there's always a favored kid or a favored wife, or I mean, not that anyone has two wives really now. But the reason why he put them in the front was because they suffered. They the kids from, I can't remember which one it was, but one of his wives didn't treat the other one that great. And same with the kids, they were jealous. So God shows more mercy on people who live a life of suffering, or God really favors the underdog, even if it doesn't always look like that. So he knew they had more merits. So if there was going to be a war, God would give them more protection. See, that's the way we're supposed to read. We're supposed to, when God singles a person or a nation out and says that they're His, or He gives them prophecy. Everyone except for Balaam, he's obviously wicked. But everyone else, just like with our own personal life, we're supposed to give people the benefit of the doubt. But most of us just look for whatever we want to see, in stuff. It's getting late and I gotta get up early. Or I should try to get up early. I'll talk about my experience where I was. BB, I think you heard this at least once, if not more than once. But for anyone that's new that hasn't, on the night of September 10th, Monday 2001, I was out getting drunk. Like pretty much every night at that point. Fulfilling my own desires as much as I could possibly stuff in my body. Except that night was not. The night was different for whatever reason. I didn't get completely obliterated like I usually do. I had some kind of sobriety and clarity. And there was some random girl that was like new in town and went to the bar and got wasted and didn't know how to get home. It was so weird. So I had to try to figure out how to get her back to where her apartment was or something. And then there was this cat, this lost cat, and it looked like this. There was a kitten, really. It was like a couple months old, maybe, and it looked exactly like the kitten that my friend's roommate got. And I thought it ran away and was like 50 blocks away from their house or something. So after I get this girl back to her, and this is how disgusting people are. Her boyfriend was back at her apartment, and she's out with, you know, random strange dudes at a bar. God have mercy and help us all. And so after I drop her off, or get her to walk her back to her apartment. I'm going to my friend's house where we usually went after the bar to pass out in our drunken stupor. I was gonna go try to get this kitten back to his roommate, but I didn't want to touch it because I wasn't like 100% sure. So I figured if it follows me back there, then it's probably his kitten that ran away. And the whole time, the cat or the kitten is following me all the way there, running up this tree, or running up trees along the sidewalk. But the whole night, I had this weird sense, and it just, as the night went on, it kept getting more prominent, I guess. I was out all alone. I think it was like, I don't know. By that time, I think it was about 3 in the morning. By the time I was headed back to his house, I only realized this, I don't know how many years later, that at the time the flights had already left wherever they were at. So I was on the I was on the West Coast. So all the plans of whatever had already been set in motion. Everything was in the air. We've got some planes. But I didn't know that at the time, obviously. And I didn't even realize like how close everything was. And by the time I get back to my friend's house, he answers the door with his kitten in his hand, which is weird enough. Or so, it was like right there, something like that. And he's like, what's this cat? That's not my cat. So that was another weird thing. But the whole night, from like the last 2 or 3 hours that I'm wandering around the street, and there was no one around. I mean, it was late, but there was no one. It was like completely vacant. I just had this weird, just something's going on. I don't know what it is. And I used to have some weird ideas about, world peace and new age garbage, and my own personal form of Avodah my own personal idol worship. Basically, like most people that aren't either, some strict religious adherents. Most people just make up their own religion in their head. But I had this, it was like we are in we're in the entire world is hanging the balance right now. I don't know which way it's going to go, for good or for evil. It literally felt like everything could possibly, I don't know. Now, I guess I could describe it as it felt like Mashiach might come. Like there might be a redemption and everything would be resolved. Like right when the sun came up that morning, it was felt like it was that close. Either that or the exact opposite. And by the time I got back to my friend's house and we went to sleep, I think it was like, I don't know, five something in the morning, five shortly after five. And right as I was falling asleep, only years later did I realize that literally as I closed my eyes and passed out was when the first tower got struck at like 8:46 or something like that on the East Coast. I mean, I have no idea one way or the other what what that was really, like, why that happened or anything. I have a little bit of clarity now with God's help, Baruch Hashem, thanks to the Torah. The only thing that matters is what God says in His book, and that we do it. We don't make excuses. We don't suffer the curse of the in this week's Parasha, and tell ourselves that, yeah, I know God says this, but I'm going to do my own thing and I'm going to be cool. Because God will wipe us out. Forever, for eternity. I listened to, I think last night's stream, or skimmed through it, try to put some timestamps in the description for SEO optimization. I didn't realize how long the dead spaces are. If anyone wants something to do, they're watch any of these at any point in time in the future, and there's some change in the topic or something, and you want to, maybe maybe help us out. Only God knows if it's going to work or not. Post the timestamps in the comments. Okay. We have what was it 11 or 12 more days till Rosh Hashanah. Not sure exactly how we can build our Yirat Shamayim, build our fear of God up much more, but I'm sure God will help us out till that to that point. The key, like Robert Victor Miller says, is once we reach that peak, not to let it all crumble into dust, however slowly. I was thinking just because just because we survived survived the year, we're going to be good. To always keep learning and keep doing as much as we possibly can. Robert Rubin has a terrifying story of one of his cousins. He was like 23. His dad was like a multi-millionaire. It was like 2 days after, I forget if it was Rosh Hashanah or Yom Kippur, but literally, I think it was a day after one of those. He was riding around on a scooter. He fell. He hit his head. He went to sleep and he never woke up. God gives us warnings all the time, and no one. He was only 23. The sages say that no one knows how big their cup of sins are, but once it's full, one last drop from one sin, there's no further for a person. God cuts them out, like the lifeline cannot be extended. Once the cup is full, that's it. God commands the Satan, the Malach HaMavet, to come and yank their soul from the world. Baruch Hashem for your mercy. Thank you so much. May God grant us all the strength to keep learning and keep pushing ourselves just a little bit more. Every day, every week, every month, every year. Even though we may not know how that is humanly possible, we have to remind ourselves that anything that tells us it's not possible is only the Yetzirah. It's only the evil inclination coming to try to keep us away from everything that is good. May God grant us wisdom to be able to maximize all the tools that He gives us. We have everything that we need right in front of us, at least right now. Please help us to see how to maximize everything to the peak of its potential before we ask for anything more. please allow all our kirub, all our efforts to, for our teshuvah, for our repentance, and to help other people. Please allow them all to be successful. I'll talk to you guys soon. Have a good night.